Hey everyone, Stacks here, checking out Wolverine #1. This is actually part 2. Not that you can't go ahead and watch this video because the two storylines do not necessarily cross over. So what I'll do is I'll leave a link to part 1 at the end of this video. That way you could go back and watch that. Like I said, the two stories do not overlap at this point, so you could watch them in either order. It's not a big deal. What is a big deal is make sure you hit that subscribe button, leave a like, and of course comment below and let me know what you think about the video. And go check out my X-Men Fantastic Four video where you can register to win that complete miniseries. The link will be at the end of this video as well. So of course this is still written by Benjamin Percy, and your artist for this one is Viktor Bagdanovic, which coincidentally his birthday was yesterday. I mean, not yesterday if you're watching this video like a week from when I recorded it, but his birthday was a day before the release of this. So having a Wolverine #1 come out with your name on it, kind of a big deal. So congratulations to him on that and happy birthday. And also your color artist on this is Matthew Wilson. So the book starts with Wolverine on Krakoa, and he's basically running across the island and having his, internal dialogue about the dangers of Krakoa and how other individuals on this island are seeing this as a paradise, but it comes with its own dangers, its inherent dangers to the island. And the island itself and the way it adapts and changes underneath his feet is an example of that. And he treats this island like one big danger room. He even talks about how with enemies that, longtime enemies, how they've now become allies and in this united front of mutantdom, and how those that were trying to destroy the world are now trying to save it. And despite all this, what seems like a good thing, he's the one that's continually kind of had this uneasiness to it, that underneath it all, he just doesn't trust it for some reason. Or if he does trust it, he is not at least going to let himself get soft and let his guard down. But Wolverine makes the statement that, as someone who's done terrible things and moved on past them, I suppose I gotta trust that the same is possible for everyone else. And right at that time, everybody gets this look of panic on their face, and Omega Red comes through one of the portals to Krakoa. He comes in dripping with blood and says, "I understand that you're offering amnesty." And it doesn't take long for Wolverine to throw the claws up and tell Omega Red he's got 3 seconds to back through that gate. And Wolverine begins the countdown, takes off after him, dives, lunges for him, about to rip into him, and Magneto just pauses him right there in air. Says, "Eat, stop." And then talking to Omega Red says, "Please excuse the inhospitable reaction, Omega Red. You are of course welcome here in Krakoa." And Wolverine's ticked. He's like, my job's to protect this place, Magneto. Let me do it. And Magneto tells him, hold up. As keen as your senses might be, you're missing something here. Omega Red may be covered in blood, but most of it is his own. And right as it happens, right as he says that, Omega Red just collapses face first into the ground. Well, Magneto in turn takes Wolverine and tosses him through the portal and says, "Hey, go check that out and let us know what kind of mess is waiting for us on the other side of that gate." Well, the other side of the gate emerges from Paris, and there's a car alarm going off. There's something dripping from underneath this car, and Wolverine goes and checks and realizes real quick that it's blood. He goes around to the back of this vehicle, pops the trunk, and it's full of dead bodies, and one of these bodies reaches up and grabs him and then dies in his arms right there. But before this guy dies, he tells Wolverine, "You're like him." And Wolverine tries to say, "No, I'm nothing like him." But in his mind, it hits him really hard because he realizes he's got a million reasons to hate Omega Red, but there's one that stings worse than all of the rest. And that's the fact that Omega Red, reminds Wolverine of himself. The very worst part of himself. After investigating all this, Wolverine returns back to Krakoa to tell Magneto what he found. We do get a rundown from Dr. Reyes about the injuries that Omega Red suffered, and whatever that got a hold of him was strong enough to, do a number on him, which is saying a lot. Well, this is when Wolverine pops in and starts talking about how you can't heal Omega Red. He's sick all the way down to the marrow. And he does not believe that Krakoa can be safe with him on the island. But Magneto actually ends up putting Wolverine in his place saying, look, that's not for you to decide. You're effectively the CIA. You are not on the Quiet Council. You do not pass laws. You do not make laws. You do not pass judgment. And plus, if anything goes wrong, resurrection will be made available to all those who fall prey to him. Bottom line, your job is to neutralize the problem. That's what X-Force does. Neutralize the problem. Wolverine's like, he had a trunk full of dead bodies. How do you neutralize that? And Magneto tells him, look, you don't know the whole story. We don't know the whole story. Go talk to Omega Red and figure it out. He's going to remain in holding until he's both healed up and debriefed. Your job is to find out what he's done and clean it up. So Wolverine goes and does what he has to do. He goes down and he talks to Omega Red. And during this conversation, they get to, Wolverine's just calling him like, look, you're sick, you're crazy, you're a murderer. And Wolverine brings up the bodies that he left behind. And he goes, well, unless I didn't kill them. And he's like, I know, you don't believe me. But I'm too tired to argue right now. I'm going to rest. So while I do that, you go to King Oubliette's. Then we'll see if you still feel the same way about me. So Wolverine makes the trip back to Paris. And he's going to this joint which is known for basically some horrendous torture back in the day. But while Wolverine is walking up to this place, this woman walks up to him, shoves some flowers in his face, and says something in French that I'm not going to try to say. I'm going to do everybody a favor. But basically says that there's some dog roses for sale, and he tells her where to go, and then apologizes and says, excusez-moi. And at that point, she tells him, look, don't even speak French. Your accent makes a truly beautiful language really ugly. Well, he tells her, look, I'd rather buy you a drink than buy you some flowers, so why don't we go on in this place? And she tries to sell him on a bar down the street, and he's like, well, my business is here, so another time maybe. And she very ominously says, there won't be another time. Bum, bum, bum. Well, Wolverine sits down at the table, he has a drink, and while he's sitting there, suddenly the entire place is looking at him. They're looking at him with these red, devilish eyes, and everything starts getting kind of, he gets feeling tipsy, can't feel his fingers, and next thing you know, he's out. Now, his body handles the toxins pretty quick, and he comes back too, but when he does, he's hanging upside down. Well, the idea here is they're basically going to put a tap in him like he's a darn maple tree, and but this goes sideways once they put the tap in, because Wolverine flips out, pops the claws, and dude who just put a tap in him just gets beheaded right there on the spot. He gores his way through another guy and starts swinging wildly, and that's when he realizes he has help, because the girl from outside comes in and just blasts away two of these vampires. Well, she drops the cloak and is some kind of, level 74 paladin or something, and explains that the reason she pushed the dog rose flowers in front of her face is because vampires hate those just as much as they do garlic. Well, finally Wolverine just says, hey, look, are you gonna give me a name, or are you just gonna leave me hanging? And she does that. She just takes off and leaves him hanging there from the roof. Back on Krakoa, Wolverine goes to Omega Red and says, look, you trying to get me killed out there? And Omega Red just replies, I was trying to show you the truth. How could I have murdered those people if they were already dead? Those people were prisoners. They were bitten, they were infected, trapped deep in those catacombs until their transition was complete. And Wolverine still doesn't believe him. He says, you know why I don't believe you, Red? It's because you live off death. You might as well be a bloodsucker yourself. And Omega Red just looks at him and says, maybe I've changed. And Wolverine's like, you can't change what you are. And Omega Red calls him out here and says, is that so, Weapon X? You're the one that kept the carbonadium synthesizer from me all those years, Logan. You. And that's an item basically that stabilizes Omega Red's condition to where he doesn't have to feed off other life forms the way he does. But Omega Red tries to put this on Logan, and Logan's like, no, you were a murderer, you were a killer long before you got lab enhanced. Spilling blood is as natural as breathing to you. And that's when Omega Red comes back and said, did you know I've been relying on animals lately? Sheep, cattle, deer, the occasional dog. They sustain me. I've heard Krakoa provides whatever sustenance is necessary. maybe I can thrive here. And Wolverine's still like, that's it, huh? You're cured, huh? You just like that. You snap your tentacles and suddenly you're an angel. And then Omega Red asks him, do you know the story of St. Julian? Never was much for Sunday school. So Omega Red tells this story of St. Julian, who was out hunting in the woods, and when he came upon a stag, but before he could kill it, it spoke this sinister prophecy to him, saying Julian, would be responsible for his parents' deaths. But because he loved them so much, he tried to escape this fate. He moved far away, and for many years, his parents sought him out, wondering why he had abandoned them. And when they finally located his home, they were old and weary and sick, and they knocked, and Julian's new wife answered. She hurried the elderly couple to bed and took them to rest and ran off to go find a doctor. And while she was gone, Julian came home and found two people asleep in his bed. He jumped to the conclusion that his wife was sleeping with another man, and in a blind rage, he took a sword and stabbed them both to death, fulfilling the stag's prophecy. It's a story of dark inevitability. But the story has an unexpected ending. If you want to learn it, go back to Paris. And he does that. He goes back to the church that's named after this guy, and who does he happen to run into but this woman that he met earlier? Well, because Wolverine is smooth as silk, he walks in there, he's sitting in there waiting, has one of the dog rose flowers, and as this same woman comes in and asks him, would you like to buy he tells her, I already got one. You want it? The price is your name. And her name is Louise. And we find out that she's part of an ancient holy order called the Night Guard. And their whole thing is they're devoted to fighting vampires and their vampire nation. And well, since Wolverine's managed to track her this far, she invites him to go hunting. And they head down into the catacombs of Paris. Well, they head down and Wolverine has just got to know how this story ends. And while he's sitting there talking about it, he manages to step on some kind of trap door that they fall through. And as they fall down, he tells her, quick, grab onto me. She grabs on and they fall right onto basically old bones that end up stabbing up through Wolverine. Well, as soon as they hit, a vampire horde just hears them fall and takes off running at them. Well, old girl ain't having any luck because her UV cannon got busted on the way down, so she has to whip out a holy hand grenade. And Wolverine ain't even got time to pull the bones out of him before he has to get to work. But before Logan can even get ramped all the way up, this girl gets captured. And the vampires tell him, look, we want the same thing we wanted back at Oblet. Just a taste, nothing else. And that's what they do. They end up swarming in, all of them basically get a bite of him, and then they transform and they fly back to this other location. Now Wolverine's not going to have any problems because his antibodies are going to prevent him from becoming a vampire. But this vampire hunter, she's like, look, something's not right. They shouldn't have left like that. And Logan's proud of himself because he killed their leader. But he's not the leader. He's middle management. Because who's really running this show? Even though Krakoa is rising, so is the Vampire Nation. And while Krakoa has Charles Xavier, Vampire Nation has Vlad, Dracula. But wait, there's more. Like I was saying, that's not the end of the deal here. There's more to this. Because Omega Red comes through the portal, walking into Paris again. And who should he happen to run into but this guy with this nice top hat and red eyes? And Omega Red walks up to him and says, Dracula, the plan must have worked unless you're wearing SPF 3000. I got you, Logan. I did my part. And Dracula hands over to him a carbonadium synthesizer. However, it comes with a cost because inside of it is a detonator. And that means that while Omega Red can go and live on Krakoa, he will remain in the service of Dracula. First, let me say that Dracula using Wolverine's blood to recover and become stronger, that's pretty cool. Now, one issue I have right now, and maybe I'm missing something, is the last time I remember seeing Dracula was during the Avengers run with Jason Aaron, where there was the Vampire Civil War, and he ended up, Dracula it was, being moved into Chernobyl. So he's in Russia. I don't understand why suddenly he's in Paris. It seemed like he did a whole lot to get Chernobyl, so it seems like there was a storyline in the works there. And of course, I ducked out on Avengers at 25 because it got really bad. But let me know if I missed something there with Dracula. There were some high points of the art in this book. I really liked the part where Wolverine was talking down in the prison, or the holding cell, with Omega Red. I really thought that was well done. The one issue I did have, as far as a negative, would be Magneto's helmet. I don't think it looked right. Something about the way his face was done made it look really flat, but just my perspective on it. Definitely interested to see how this plays out going forward, because I think what they'll probably do is they'll run each of these stories as a monthly, basically. Wolverine will be coming out twice a month, but you'll have one storyline and then the other, and they'll just switch back and forth on it. That way they can keep, hopefully the artists can stay caught up and we don't end up with delays and fill-in artists and everything else. Anyways, guys, I'm sorry that I sound horrible. I do apologize for that. I'm fighting a cold. But anyways, I hope everybody takes the time, hit that subscribe button, leave a like, and tell me what you think down below. Definitely go pick this up from your LCS if you haven't already, and I left a link for Comixology down in the description. Also, if you haven't checked out part 1 of this, make sure you go do that. The other storyline in this book was just as good. Next week is going to be crazy with X-Men titles, because we have the X-Men Fantastic Four. I believe we have X-Men, X-Force, a giant size X-Men. It's going to be stupid busy, so I will try to get those videos up. You'll probably get at least one a day. I will try to crank them out as quickly as possible and hope you enjoy them. As always, make sure you're subscribed and hit that bell for notifications so you don't miss them when they do come out, guys. I appreciate you. Thank you for watching. Real Comic Stacks out.